Magazine has the pleasure to receive today in its program called The Cause, Jason Kahl. Jason is a journalist, photographer, producer. Today, we're going to talk. It's very difficult to interview someone you worked with. Hi, Jason.
Yes, not only worked with, but we were friends and we were like brothers.
Yes, and I remember my first days reading Eagle newspaper. You were the guy who welcomed me and
Yeah,
helped
and
me.
I was the crime reporter too.
Oh yeah, and understand something how they were working there. So thank you very much for accepting this invitation.
It was a pleasure for me. I was happy to meet you and to know you. I'm proud of what you do and even what you accomplished when I first met you. You're a person that people should look up to, a good man.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Jason. Now today, you went from Reading to Miami, but
Yes.
let's talk about Reading first. You were
Sure.
a crime reporter.
Yes, and a columnist also, and
Yeah.
photographer.
Why did you leave this beautiful area and this beautiful job to go to Miami?
Well, I'll give you the short answer first, and then if you like me to explain more, I can give you a longer answer, okay?
No
The
problem.
short answer is Pennsylvania is where I grew up as a child. Then I went to Philadelphia for high school with Donald Trump's son, a private boarding school, all boys, the Hill School. After this, I went to Washington, D.C. for university at Georgetown University. I studied in the School of Foreign Service, where I was going to be a diplomat working in the State Department, maybe in Russia, maybe in the Congo, maybe in Venezuela, maybe in London. I didn't know. That's what I trained to do. Yeah. When I graduated, I worked before my graduation and after my graduation for a woman, Pamela Harriman, who was the ambassador to France from the United States. And she was named my senior year, which was 1992, by Bill Clinton when he was elected president. She had raised a lot of money and been a big supporter for Bill Clinton, so he asked her to be the ambassador to France. And then she met me. I was working in an Italian restaurant near her house while I studied, because I had just been studying in Florence, Italy, the Renaissance and Italian. So it was a strange mix of things that brought me to her. She was a customer. She was with a big group of people. They started asking me questions about Russia and international relations and things I was studying. And they were very interested in my answers and thought I was an interesting person to talk to. So they started inviting me to come to special events with them, and then I went over to Paris. But the State Department had a hiring freeze because the government was in a bad period then. There was a recession in the United States, and they were trying to make the budget of the government go smaller. So the way the United States makes the budget go down is they just stop hiring new people for 4 years. Everybody who's there, they keep their job, but there's no new people. This later caused some problems with the intelligence and information gathering that led to 9/11 and the terrorist bombing and Osama bin Laden, because we didn't have a lot of people from my generation, those 4 years, who would have been in those countries and developing sources and contacts and information. Those positions were open. So there was a gap. I read the report from the government, from Congress after the investigation, and it says in there as well, like the lack of manpower at State Departments, CIA, U.S. Information Agency led us to be weak, where we were once strong. So when I didn't get a job in the State Department, nobody else did either. I had to figure something else out to do. My mom said, "What do you like doing every day?" I said, "I love reading the newspaper. I love listening to the radio and talking about drug cartels and the mafia and, revolutions and, civil wars in Africa and everything. That's what I like to think about when I'm not studying or working."
Yeah.
And I like to read books, and I read the Washington Post. I read the New York Times. I enjoy it. That's part of my day that I like, and I'm happy
Hmm.
because I'm learning and thinking about other things. And I might not be traveling to that country, but I'm traveling in my mind to
Interesting.
understand the people and the problems. Yeah, it was an escape for me. Every day I felt like I was flying around the world because I read all these stories and I know all the main characters in each country or each conflict.
Hmm.
And so my mom said, well, that's it. You need to be a newspaper or magazine reporter, and then you get to do what you already do for free and you get paid. And
Interesting.
you'll be with the people who write those articles, so you'll be interested in them and it'll be fun. And I said, I don't know, Mom. I didn't study to be a writer.
Hmm.
I didn't study to be a journalist. I studied to be a diplomat. And she said, well, you're an excellent writer and you read a lot of newspapers and books, so you can do it.
Hmm.
And even if you didn't study and major in this, specialty. And she was right. I got a job. The first job I had was at my hometown newspaper in Pennsylvania, the Reading Eagle, where you met me.
Yeah.
I had to write the obituaries
Yeah.
3 days a week. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I write obituaries.
Yeah.
It's a part-time job.
Yeah.
They don't give me any medical benefits or seniority or anything. It's like you just come 3 days a week. You work 8 hours or 10 hours, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. And then the other days of the week, we're going to use you if we need you to go to like a school board meeting
Yeah.
or some small local government meeting that they don't have enough reporters. They're going to
Same stuff I started with.
exactly like this.
Oh, yeah.
You're out there in a farm field and you're talking about how much they're going to pay to clean the roads in the township or how much it's going to cost to fix the building because of the storm last winter, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was good training because it teaches you to find out what people are concerned about,
Sure.
what they're trying to fix, what problems they have, and also the details of an investigator, how you spell your name. You make sure you get the name right.
That's true.
Where they work, you make sure you find out where that business is, where they live, where is their house, because maybe you're going to go back there. So these kind of details that go in every newspaper story that's a professional story anywhere in the world, people read that and they don't realize how many questions you have to ask and how many phone books you have to look in and searches on Google, on the internet, and phone calls to get everything in that whole article 100% correct, accurate every time. So obituaries are very short, but they have a lot of information.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, so it's a good way to train new reporters, and I'm glad that I did that. Of course, at the time, I never thought it would be interesting to write about people who died, but I found it was very interesting because I think about where they went to school, where they grew up, so I'd be imagining this person's whole life story in a little thick piece of, he went to this church, this school, this military, this job, But in my head, I'd be trying to picture the person. And so it was a good thing for my imagination and also for the technical skills.
Yeah.
After 1 year, my best friend from when I was a little boy got a job to work in a law firm in Dallas, Texas. He was going to be the office manager. His name's Sam Weichel, and he's still one of my best friends, but I haven't talked to him recently.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam, if you hear this somewhere.
Yeah.
But he grew up close by to me in the same neighborhood, and we went to the same grade school. So he called me up and said, Jason, I got a great job at this law firm in Dallas, Texas, but that's like on the other side of the country. And I know you're not so happy that you're just going to the school board meeting and writing the obituaries, and you feel like you're ready to fly like a bird a little bit higher now and write bigger stories.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to take a vacation, because I had been working 7 days a week for 1 year with no days off, no vacation, no overtime. He said, take a little break. Tell them you want some time off and drive to Texas with me. And you can spend 1 or 2 weeks and maybe go for some interviews, and at least we'll have an adventure. And you'll have something fun, and we can talk and we can take turns driving, because Dallas is like maybe 2 days, 2 or 3 days driving. If you go the speed limit and you stop.
Yeah,
it's a long way to go. I mean, maybe not compared to some people's journeys. I mean, there are bigger countries and bigger distances, like when you traveled to Reading from Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, this story to me was incredible. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was watching a movie, and I didn't even know if the movie was real, but I couldn't close my eyes or my ears.
I
You
can't even
captured
imagine.
my attention and my imagination immediately. I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
this guy's a movie star.
yeah.
Andy Kalala, I want to be his friend. He does things they don't even do in the movies. So yeah, anyway, while I was in Texas, I got hired by the Fort Worth Star Telegram, big newspaper next to Dallas, Fort Worth. I was going to cover local city government. I ended up working at another newspaper called the Dallas Suburban Tribune, which is in Balch Springs, which is a little tiny old part of Dallas where Dallas was first the old part of the city,
Hmm.
in a neighborhood called Pleasant Grove. And it was a weekly newspaper. There were like maybe 6 people working there, like a photographer, and then I was a part-time photographer,
Hmm.
and then I was a reporter, and then I was also an editor for the high school and college students that sent things to us, and I would help write the headlines, and I would help proof. There was an editor, Ken Milstead, who I haven't talked to him in many years. I don't know if he's still with us, but he was old then.
Hmm.
But he had been in the military, and he had worked at a lot of newspapers, and he really was passionate, even though it was a tiny newspaper with no budget.
Hmm. Wow.
I mean, I think I had to tell Ken, I got to work 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, okay? Because you're not going to pay me enough money to pay my bills. So the other 3 days I have to work in a restaurant so I have enough money so I can stay here, because I have to be independent and support myself. So I worked at the newspaper Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then Friday, I work in the restaurant, another Italian restaurant in Dallas this time.
Hmm.
And I work from 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. Friday, the same thing Saturday. And then Sunday, I have my easy day. I only worked for the lunch and the brunch. So it was like 9 o'clock in the morning until 1 in the afternoon, and then I could go home.
Hmm.
That was my day to relax. So then I was in Dallas for 3 years. Then I came home to visit my mom and sister. For Christmas one year. I was single, I wasn't married, and I drove back to Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I went to some restaurants and cafes to see old friends I had from growing up. And maybe, everybody comes home for the Christmas and New Year's holiday. So you see people maybe you didn't see for 10 years. So then I went to see my mom and my sister for Christmas, and I went out to a restaurant in West Reading. It's called Third and Spruce, because a lot of my friends would meet at this restaurant at night, on the weekends, before holidays. It was a traditional place where the guys I knew from growing up would be, and the girls too. And so I went in there, and one of the editors who knew me when I was working at the newspaper happened to be sitting at the bar.
Hmm.
And I was sitting at a table eating with some friends of mine, and the editor saw me, when I walked by to, leave or something. He's like, I think I'm seeing a ghost here. Is that Jason Kahl? And I say, yeah, I'm Jason. How are you, Nick? And it was Nick Yost. And he said, hey, I thought you were in Dallas. What are you doing here? I didn't know you were back here. And I said, no, I still live in Dallas. I just came home to visit my relatives, my family.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, did you ever think about coming back here? Because we have a job opening soon for a crime reporter, and I thought you'd be very good for that job, and it'd be a good opportunity for you, and you'd be the perfect person.
Hmm.
And I said, well, when's that position going to open? And he said, I'm not sure, maybe 3 months or 5 months from now,
Hmm.
I said, okay, well, I'll go back to Dallas and after the Christmas holiday, and then when the position's coming open, you let me know and I'll apply.
Hmm.
And so 2 months later, I got the job. And
So, what made that job, crime reporter, interesting and good to you?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's about, some of the most, important things in society. A government's job is to protect its people.
Hmm.
That's why we have a government, to protect us from a foreign country or from a tribe next door or from our neighbors or from our wife. You have government there that creates a constitution, laws, has principles and ideals, and a court system to protect the good people in the country. And what a crime reporter does is they write about what happens when that system has to work to investigate something, or how that system broke and didn't protect maybe a little child who was killed. who should have been protected by the government, and to write about these things. And I saw that being an important job,
Yeah.
you know, part of fighting for justice and freedom and liberty and your civil rights and freedom of religion and all those things that you read about in the US. My job and your job as a journalist here, and everyone who's a reporter, whether they're on the television, the radio, the internet, or a newspaper, which I was newspaper, later I was internet, now I'm internet. I've been on TV. I've been on, you know, CNN and Fox and Court TV. But all of our job is the same, to make sure the government does what they promise they're going to do. That's why we pay them. That's why we elect them. And of course, they're people, right? They're humans like me and you. And
Right.
what do we know about humans anywhere in the world? There's good humans and there's bad humans. And there's
Right.
mistakes and there's temptations. And there's corruption and there's problems. The journalists here, and I think the journalists like you in the Congo and people in Afghanistan and all over the world, every country you can imagine, there's somebody like you, somebody like me, who's looking and listening and talking and writing. What's good? What's bad? What needs to be fixed? We're doing that to help the people of that country. We don't get anything from this. We don't get rich. Most people don't know who we are. But the journalists on the radio, TV, internet, every country in the world, everyone who's trying to write about the truth and facts and justice, they're fighting the right side of the history, I think.
You were out in the night, out in the day,
My bulletproof vest.
under the rain, under the
Yes.
sun, doing your job. Why?
I loved
You,
it wasn't a job. It was fun for me. I enjoyed getting to know everybody in the city, every language, every religion, every neighborhood. I loved going there and meeting people.
and
Yeah, I was almost like a politician in the end. Everybody knew me everywhere.
did that?
From the drug dealer in the bad neighborhood to the congressman in Washington.
Yeah.
Everybody, the top to the bottom, like
Yeah.
you.
So you were between police and sometimes the bad guys.
Yes.
How did you survive that?
Okay, well, I wore a bulletproof vest, first of all. When I would go out into the city and there had been a shooting or there was a gunman somewhere, somebody from a business that makes bulletproof vests in Reading gave me a vest that had been an old vest, and a police officer said, "Here, give this to somebody who needs it. I'm getting a new vest." And that guy, the owner, gave me the vest. And then he later gave me another one, but that was one way I stayed safe. But I had people like organized crime, the mafia, drug dealers, people like that who sometimes threaten me, maybe with a phone call or yelling at me from a corner. But there are more good people in those neighborhoods, and those good people knew what I was doing there. I was trying to make their neighborhood better or write what they were concerned about. And I was telling the truth about what they said. They trusted me, and I had a reputation for being someone who stood up for people, especially the weak people and the vulnerable people, because they need the most protection, and the children. People who can't protect themselves, they need somebody to fight on their side, and that's what I was trying to do. And I think the good people in the community and in all the surrounding communities, and later in different parts of the country and different parts of the world, started to get a reputation. They would hear about me, and I had a good reputation, and lots of supporters and people who would help me and give me information and encourage me, to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing. That gave me the strength, like, okay, this is important. I got to do this, Who else is going to do it? And so I loved it.
One day you left all this beautiful job you've been talking with passion to move to Miami.
Yes. Well, okay. I didn't know I was going to come to Miami when this happened, when I left the newspaper job as a crime reporter. The newspaper business had been going down and down for about 5 to 10 years before that happened when I left.
Yeah.
Because of the internet and because a lot of the newspapers didn't know how to make money. People were canceling their subscriptions. The advertising revenue went down, and they were letting go. They couldn't pay the same number of people anymore. and the newspaper gets smaller. And you know how that is. It's a cycle.
Interesting.
And it wasn't just in Reading. It's, you know, in the whole world.
Mhm.
Journalists like me and you had to figure out a different way
That's
to
true.
make money, use our skills, because a newspaper that had 600 employees, 2 years later, they might have 200 employees.
Yeah.
And 400 are out. And at every other newspaper, the same things happen. So I didn't know what to do when I came here.
Mhm.
I left out a little part because I was in a car accident right after I left the newspaper.
Oh.
A teenage boy was drinking beer with his friends in his car, and it was close to where I lived and where you live, in Perkiomen Avenue
Yeah.
in Exeter Township. And I think I had went to the store, maybe Walmart, to get some coffee or something like this, groceries. And I was driving home. I was staying at a different house. I had been married and I was going through a divorce. So I was driving home at night, and this boy who was drinking beer with his friends came off the highway and went through a red light and hit the side of my car, right where my head is.
Yeah.
And hit the side like they call it a T-bone accident, like this.
Yeah, I see.
A lot of people die in those kind of accidents because the car is very heavy and it hits the door.
Yeah.
And your head, which is very delicate compared to a car. But it took a few years, Andy. You don't know. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what day it was. I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. I couldn't smell. I was confused.
Wow.
I didn't know what day it was. I couldn't watch television because I would get dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read a book because I couldn't see the words. I didn't know I needed glasses. I couldn't walk because I lost my balance because my eyes were troubled, and I had they call it a traumatic brain injury.
I see.
TBI. My whole face got black from the blood from my brain, but there was no surgery, and I was only in the hospital for short periods of time in the first year. Mostly I was at home.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't walk. I couldn't read. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid to stand by the window. I thought people were going to hurt me. And it was very scary and difficult time. And I had to pray, and I had to rely on my family, my sister, Jessica Hinsey, my mother, Dr. Kathleen Kahl. They let me live in their homes and drove me places and made sure I ate and went to the doctor and got better little by little.
Yeah.
And I'm still in that process now, 7 years after the accident. Every year with the anniversary, I start to get a little dizzy. I start to have problems with my health. I'm okay. I go swimming in the ocean every morning, Andy, at sunrise.
Okay.
I walk to the beach from my house 5 minutes at 5:30 in the morning when it's still dark outside.
Yeah.
And I get to the beach and I get my bathing suit on and I put on some goggles and I stretch my arms. And I remember when I was a teenager in high school at the Hill School with Donald Trump's son, and I was a good swimmer, and I was training for the Olympics with water polo, and I was riding a bicycle with my friend Sam Weichel in triathlons, and I was running on the track team and doing a lot of things. So at Georgetown, I knew Joe Biden's son, Hunter. He's been in the news lately. He lived down the hall from me freshman year with another senator's son.
Interesting.
Yeah, Senator D'Amato's son, Chris, from New York. So they were on my hall, and I was friends with that. So I said, I'm probably the only guy in the United States or the world. I mean, I am the only guy who went to high school with Donald Trump's oldest son and went to college with Joe Biden's son. So I know both of them. I was going to write something about that and send it to the New York Times. Like, listen, I'm the only person who knows both of these boys, you know, from when they were teenagers and growing up in college. Yeah. And I like Joe Biden's son better than, or the other way, you know, like this, like to compare the sons.
Yeah, do you still?
They're both nice guys, and they were both good students.
What's the cause living for now, in Miami or in your life?
I mean, the same things I always have been for, Andy. That doesn't change. I'm always trying to become a better person. You know, I studied Latin and Greek, the ancient texts, Plato, Socrates, Virgil in Latin from Rome. So I was fortunate to get this great education and fortunate to read these great writers. And later when I lived in Italy, I read, Dante, the Divine Comedy about purgatory and heaven, and it was written during the Black Plague and the Black Death in Europe when more than half of the population died. And I read that in Italian, in the medieval Italian. So I'm always for the good. I'm for the light. I'm for the good people in the world, the people that are helping other people. And I'm always fighting and against the people that are trying to hurt those good people, whether they're in government, whether they're in a criminal gang, or whether they're in a marriage or a family. If there's a bad person, I want that person away from the good people, and I want to help the good people. Like a firefighter, like a police officer, there are lots of people trying to fight that way. The good politicians, the good religious leaders, the good teachers, many people that have a bigger impact than me, but me and you, we have our role too, and that's what I see as important. And also now I'm trying to help young people. I was telling you before, with people who want to be a model, an actress, a singer, some kind of artist, even a painter. And maybe they're young and nobody knows who they are, and they want to be famous and they don't know how. I want to be a person that can help them, and help them for free or very little money, because that's a way I can help the community and help the talented people to make the world better. If anybody wants to get in touch with me or follow me or support me, you can find me on Facebook at Jason Kahl, Kahl, or on Instagram at Newspaper Guy, all one word, like newspaper, and then GUY. And that has a link to my Facebook. You can send me an email there. I also have a website that's coming called JK Productions with a Z at the end. And that's going to sort of put all the different projects I'm working on, because there's a few other things like teaching people English in my building, in my neighborhood, who come from Russia and Azerbaijan and this part of the world. And I'm going to have a club for free where they can come on Wednesday and they can have some soda or some tea, and they can speak English with me and my friends for free, and just enjoy and become and feel American.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jason Kahl.